Please, roll call.
Legislator Hathaway has been excused. Legislator Verkler. Here. Legislator Mosher. Here. Legislator Gilbert.
Here.
Legislator Chartrand.
Here.
Legislator Morahan.
Here.
Legislator Leviker.
Here.
Legislator Osborne.
Here.
Legislator Nellenbach.
Here.
And Legislator Dahlhoff.
Here. Please stand for the invocation on the pledge. And Legislator Gilbert, if you would lead us in invocation, please.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for the blessings of this Easter season and for the hope of renewed life that it represents. Give us wisdom and let our actions and attitudes reflect the spirit of charity for each other and for our constituents. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does anyone have any amendments to the March 7th board meeting minutes? Now they stand approved. Report of the Finance and Rule Committee for Rule 6, Cassandra, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee has met and they recommend to waive rules to act upon late resolutions.
Need a motion? Lisa, second by Dick. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Proclamations, we have 2 proclamations.
The first proclamation is commemorating April as Fair Housing Month. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing for persons regardless of race, ethnicity, immigration status, color, nation, origin, religion, sex, age, familial status, or disability, and without regard to actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, familial status, or marital status, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas Lewis County and the Jefferson-Lewis Board of Realtors are committed to the mission and intent of Congress and New York State to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all. And whereas our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities. And whereas more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists and many communities remain segregated. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunities are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness. And whereas the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics commits all realtors to providing equal professional services without discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, sexual orientation, gender identity, and national origin. Now, therefore, I, Lawrence L. Dahlhoff, Chairman of the Lewis County Board of Legislators, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Fair Housing Month in Lewis County, New York, as an inclusive community committed to fair housing and to promote appropriate activities by private and public entities intended to provide and advocate for equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of Lewis County.
So I think we have Mr. Britt Abbey here to accept this commemoration for the Jefferson Board of Realtors. If you would come up and accept this.
Approach the bench.
Thank
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The second proclamation is commemorating April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas April was first observed as National Child Abuse Prevention Month in 1983. Child abuse and neglect are serious ongoing problems affecting every segment of our community. And whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children. And whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas this April, Lewis County joins the New York State Office of Children and Family Services and other counties statewide to recognize April as National Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. We also take this opportunity to acknowledge the dedicated caseworkers who devote countless hours to ensure the welfare and well-being of our community's children. Now, therefore, I, Lawrence L. Dahlhoff, Chairman of the Lewis County Board of Legislators, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Lewis County.
So, Jenny, I think you're hiding behind there. Jenny Jones, if you would accept the proclamation.
Thank you. Larry, can I say one thing?
Sure.
You'll notice on the front lawn a bunch of blue pinwheels from the courthouse, and that represents a child that was interviewed at our Child Advocacy Center in the last year. So think about that. That's the number of kids in our Child Advocacy Center.
Okay, next we have privilege of the floor. We have a list of people that would like to speak. Anyone else who did not sign his welcome, but we'll start with these people first. And that would be Lori Woodrick, is the first one on the list.
Hi, my name is Lori Woodrick, and I live on Outer Stowe Street. And first of all, I would like to thank Snowbelt Housing for educating my husband and I on the homeless support housing project. We do believe that everyone needs help and compassion because life is unpredictable and bad things happen to all of us. But my husband and I have also worked very hard, like many other people in our community, to have jobs, homes, children, and grandchildren. They also have the right to have a safe space, green space, and a future in this community. The cost of this project is too high and will serve a minimal number of clients. We have been told that this project is being funded by a state grant. The money for state grants come from our tax-paid money. It is not free. This money could be better spent on a different site that would serve more clients. This program has been proven to work for the homeless and for the people that are struggling with substance abuse. But the community has many questions. Why are we choosing a site that has no room for growth? Why are we choosing a street that has a very high traffic rate, which will be unsafe for the clients? At this time, this community is using this site as a green space. Families walk and ride bikes. ARC community uses this space. The DSS employees have had vegetable gardens, flower boxes, and picnic tables are put outside for breaks in the summer. There is a better site in the area. The Ridgeview Hotel, which is located at the end of the Barter Road, is less money, more space for growth, and safer for the clients. Ridgeview Hotel has 60 units. I have talked to a local contractor that said that you could convert the 60 units into 30 units, complete with bedroom, bath, and kitchen for $900,000. The hotel can be purchased for $4.2 million. The cost of the supportive housing project with renovation and purchasing of the hotel would be $5.1 million. Yes, the hotel would be taken off the tax roll. The Ridgeview Restaurant, which was a commercial property, was just removed from the tax roll. Why? This homeless support housing project is going to help the most vulnerable people in our community. Is that not a good reason to take it off the tax roll? A solution to taking the Ridgeview Hotel off the tax roll away from its present use would be a possibility of a hotel at the Tops Plaza, snowmobile trails, groceries, gas, eateries in the area. Can we explore this approach? I have read the handout that we received at the community meeting. One of the reasons that the Stowe Street site was chosen was to be close to the DSS services. After talking to a DSS staff, a lot of the work is done over the phone. Some of the needed visits would include public assistance, which includes 3 to 4 visits the first 60 days. After that, 1 visit every 6 months. If clients are employable, every 2 weeks. There is a public transportation available which can take clients from the hotel to DSS and back. There is space at the hotel for group counseling in the basement. There's already existing offices that can be used. The safety and security needs are already built into the hotel. The hotel also has water. The Stowe Street site has not yet been approved by the village to receive water. I ask you legislators to please look at all the positives at the Ridgeview Hotel: cost, safety, space for the clients, room for growth. Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Comment.
Thank you for holding this forum again. Again, this evening, I rise in opinion, not necessarily opposition, as it seemed the media covered last time, to speak about the proposed facility on Stowe Street. If I had to entitle my comments this evening, it might be called the unanswered questions. I would like to ask each of you to actually listen to what I'm going to say, because it doesn't seem to happen sometimes, and listen to the concerns of the residents of Stowe Street and the other potential locations have. Since its inception, the Stowe Street property has been strongly the front runner in any conversations. When was the last time you heard anybody mention Andover House? When was the last time you heard someone say Glenfield would be a great fit? Probably about the last time I was here to speak. I can guarantee the answer to each of those questions is yes, those are an option. But Stowe Street is what we always hear. If you'd like a copy of my questions and my unanswered questions to mull over, I'll give you a copy. My questions. Will this facility, wherever it is placed, be solely for Lewis County residents, or will the county seek yet another revenue stream by importing from other counties? We know that there's been a lot of scuttlebutt out there about unhoused people from outside the county being brought in because services are so readily available here. Second, what will the facility be limited to for occupancy? Number 3, how long can a stay can one person expect? Is this going to become permanent housing? Is this going to be temporary housing until someone can get back on their feet? Who will administer and negotiate the length of stay for occupants? I grew up in Watertown. Low-income housing, homeless housing was there when I was a kid. I saw those neighborhoods dwindle down, and if you drive through Watertown where they were now, they're dumps, quite honestly. I don't want that to happen to my street. Next, if it is indeed permanent housing, who is going to pay for the, quote, rent, as it were, while someone stays? As I stated last time, there is no such thing as a free lunch. To think that this would not be a burden on the taxpayer is foolhardy. All money comes from somewhere, and typically it comes right from the taxpayer. It might be cloaked in a different fund, but it's still taxpayer money. All government is. Why have the village and town not been approached about the facility yet? They may have since I went to my last municipal board meeting. I will tell you, in talking with people, they knew nothing about water, sewer, a number of other things. Something to think about. What is the plan for making sure that residents are actively seeking employment, assistance, and trying to make progress toward not needing a facility such as this? I recognize very well that there are working homeless in this county. Working homeless. Who will administrate and organize the efforts to make sure that residents are using the facility as a hand-up rather than a handout? If this is going to be such a secure facility, who will be in charge of making sure that it is being properly utilized? Given the underlying security issues that many are concerned with and expressed, what assurance do the area residents have? Again, I want to ask every legislator to think about how you would feel if this facility were put within a 3-minute walk of your house, because that's exactly how long it takes to walk from that location to my home and many of the other people in this room. Would you feel comfortable having your children or your grandchildren playing in the yard, knowing that there could be a potential for criminality? Proximity to the Lewis County Sheriff's Office, once again, does not equate to protection. The recurrent talking point is that Stowe Street is best because of its proximity to Lewis County Social Services. Once again, proximity does not guarantee that someone will seek assistance. And if it is a group or mob mentality mindset of the board of legislators that everything needs to be based solely on proximity, then our words here tonight and before fall on deaf ears. Lastly, how many of the legislators have come to the residents of Stowe Street to ask how those most affected by this project would feel? I know that my doorbell hasn't rung one time. I know that my phone hasn't received a single call. walking to every door on Stowe Street would probably take less than 2 hours. When it comes time to get a signature on a petition to run for office, I can bet you'll be there. I can assure your ability to run for a seat on the board, you will not hesitate to come and knock on my door, smile, and ask for that signature. Come and ask us. Very simple. Come and ask the people that are in this room. Walk up and down the street. Come sit on my porch. I'll even make you a crappy cup of coffee. Being a legislator does not simply mean you show up to a meeting or a committee. It means that you listen to your constituents. At the last meeting, someone asked a question, and quite honestly, I almost said something I didn't. There was a little bit of a hot mic moment, and someone said, "That's how democracy works." And I think we all know who that was in this room. I'm not going to point any fingers. If that's truly how democracy works, then this entire board should be embarrassed. Do your duty. Find out how this facility is going to affect the people most directly in line with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connell. I think it's Eric Fredenberg. I'm sorry, I can't read it.
Chairman Dahlhoff and fellow legislators, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. I too live on Stowe Street. My name is Eric Fredenberg. I wanted to speak to you not in objection to this proposed project, but in objection to the proposed site. Stowe Street, if my records are correct, is the third busiest street in the village. The traffic up and down that street is probably more than what you might realize. The first and second busiest street are State Street, which includes 2 state highways, and East State Street, which is a former state highway. Stowe Street's number 3. On top of that, at the top of Stowe Street Hill, as you all know, we have a sheriff's department. They are up and down that hill many times under urgent circumstances, trying to get to an emergency or an urgent situation. They're doing the best they can to get to that incident in the quickest time possible. Adding a facility there with 20 more housing units, which would mean 20 people plus visitors, plus their vehicles and or pedestrians, is just going to add to the congestion that's already on that street. We have had 1 pedestrian fatality on that street already. I see no reason to try to make those odds go up by adding more residents to the end of the street. The other issue that I have questions about is this site will be constructed right on top of an ARC facility. The individuals being helped there are already at a disadvantage. Placing a facility for homeless will include a wide variety of people, some good, maybe some not so good. Placing a facility right on top of the ARC is a concern for me and probably should be for you. There's no mistake about what's going to happen to this property if you agree to sell, convey, or otherwise provide it to Snowbelt Housing, Northern Regional Independent Living, or whomever it may be. If you agree to give them this property, we all know what's going to take place. This is not the right location. There's too much traffic. There's an emergency services department at the end of the street, sometimes going a little fast to get to an emergency. We don't need another fatality on that street. I and my neighbors watch every winter as cars struggle to get up or down the street and not bump into the curb or go sideways trying to slow down. It's much better than the ditch that they used to be in, but now they're bumping off the curb that's there. So far, I don't know of any that one that's jumped over the curb, but there's always a first time, I suppose. I appreciate you listening. These are concerns I had, and I hope you include them in your thoughts about providing this land for what the purpose we all know will be. if you agree to provide it to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frendenberg. Next, we have Lori Rousum, please.
I want to thank you in advance for your time and listening to me again. My husband isn't here this evening because he's at our son's lacrosse game, but I just want you to know that otherwise he would be here. I called your church over the weekend because I had a couple of questions about the way meetings run as far as the ability to ask questions, and they clarified that I could ask a question to a county employee but not a legislator directly. I also asked them about the time limit with 5 minutes. I obviously don't want to go on and on, but not knowing what the time frame is with any decisions that might be made, I just wanted to share the information that I felt was important, which is not all just concerns. I do also want to reflect on some information that we did receive at the community meeting that I felt was very helpful for me as well. I did have, some of this has already been taken care of by past comments, so I'm trying not to duplicate any more than necessary. I did have a question for Ryan, just this was related to your quote that was in an article on February 21st that was written by Zach Grady, that the Stowe Street site is removed from the really residential core of the community, but it's walkable and still close to services. And my question to you is, what do you see as the possible impacts on the neighborhood around this facility, that it makes any difference where it is located in the village?
Lori, I'm going to have to stop you there. This meeting is not intended to be a dialogue.
Okay,
a
well, I
back and forth
apologize, the
dialogue.
charter said that I could, so I apologize for that.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to say that, you know, I found that personally offensive because we are very much a part of the community. And as you have heard before, there are some reasons why Stowe Street actually would not be a good street for that to be done. And I do want to share some information that's been provided to me up to this point, both through the community meeting and through emails that I have exchanged with Jalen. And I'm not for sure if her last name is pronounced Teams, but she and I have been emailing each other, so I very much appreciate the effort that she's put into that. These details have been established so far, show not just the time and effort put in, but also the attention to the details of the different areas of services included. I have no doubt that the people involved in this planning want to do the very best they can to support the people who may be housed in this building. Some information that I've received that will alleviate some of my most serious safety and security concerns includes restrictions on the people who will be placed in this housing. Anyone who's a registered sex offender, anyone with a criminal history involving violent crime, and anyone with a high-level drug crime such as manufacturing would not be allowed to be housed here. That's very good information to have, and obviously alleviate some of my initial safety concerns. However, the continuation of these specific criteria is obviously needed, since we all know how hard it is to remove someone from established housing in the event of any problems. We do have multiple rentals on Stowe Street, and I have been speaking to some of those landlords that once you get someone into any kind of housing, it's very difficult to have them removed. As I've already alluded to, the supportive services being looked at for this facility are extensive and relate to many different areas and life skills that are necessary for people in helping someone get back on their feet, live independently, and being a positive part of the community. However, there are still some concerns that I do have. I want to say that as a school counselor, I have worked as an advocate for children for 27 years. I take that responsibility very seriously, and I care very much for the children and families I work with. I do not come to you with concerns lightly, and I do not want to stand in the way of someone getting support and services they need to better their lives. I really don't. I just want to share a few concerns that I still have. And some of these are related to some specific quotes from the community meeting. One quote that was made at the community meeting, and I have them made, but I don't feel necessary unless you want to know exactly who made them, because I'm not trying to attack their opinion in any way. In response to the concern with increasing crime, the quote was, "Folks know where they're going to rest their heads at night. That's a pretty big deterrent to committing a crime and losing their housing, or that housing." And my answer to that would be yes. For a lot of people and a rational thinker, maybe that is true. But maybe not for someone with an active drug addiction or someone with a serious mental illness that may not be being properly treated or being treated at all. That may take away that rational thinking at that time. And that is a comment that I do not agree with. I'm not implying that anyone housed in this building will automatically necessarily commit a crime, because there is no way to support a broad comment like that. But based on this line of thinking, anyone housed in any way that can be taken from them will be highly deterred from committing a crime. However, most people who commit crimes are not homeless. So I'm unable to find validity in this comment. It's just having a roof over your head was enough to support logical thinking and good decision making by that person. We would have very few problems in our country, which sadly this is not the case. Another comment that was also made, and in the same article summarizing the community meeting, is that these people are already here in our village and that there is not a high level of crime surrounding these people. And that it may be true, but the model we are looking at, it will be including people from throughout the county housed together under one roof, and there's no way to necessarily know how things will go once they're grouped together in the same building. We cannot assume that the current behavior would stay the same, especially if we're talking about people with any drug histories that involve an active drug addiction versus someone in recovery. We are told not to make assumptions or generalizations about homeless, but this is an assumption and generalization. Again, I'm not implying that I believe that it is guaranteed that someone in this building will commit a crime in the community. However, these statements made to minimize that possibility are generalizations and assumptions, and one that I personally don't agree with. Another concern is related to the supportive services. A quote that I found in the article states that the 24-hour support that housing will offer is expected to be the most important safety measure. And as someone who has worked as a significant amount of time in a job that is state funded for 27 years as a public school counselor, I know firsthand how unreliable state funding can be. And my question just is what happens if that funding stops? And I feel that this should be a factor in considering the location of this facility, since the people housed here could be without these supportive services at some time in the future. Serious consideration should be given to their ability to live independently in a positive way in the community and deciding what the location of this might be. If I can still go on for a little while longer, I have as I went through multiple different articles to try to make sure that my comments were reflective of factual information that was provided, I came across several different contradictions that leave me quite confused, and I can come back in May and share those if you want me to, or if you have a few more minutes, we can continue now. I'm going to leave that up to you.
This meeting is intended to give the public an opportunity to witness legislators in action. It's not designed to be a public discussion period, so.
So what would you recommend that I do?
I recommend, I know we take comments in writing or in email form. I'd recommend if Ms. Rowson wanted to, or anybody else who doesn't have enough time in the 5 minutes to submit it to the clerk of the board and she circulates it. And I know we all read the emails that come in. We don't get a whole lot.
Would that be Ms. Cassandra Mosher?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you have specific questions for me, I'd be happy to meet with you anytime.
Thank you. And I just, again, as the others said, we just ask you to consider, we know there are a lot of other factors to consider in this decision, and so we just ask you to include the concerns that we have raised as you consider this location. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like privilege of the floor for this topic or anything else that's on their mind? If not, we'll move on to the clerk of the board report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were several adopted resolutions that were received over the past month from outside counties like Cattaraugus County, Cayuga, Shimon, Shenango, Columbia, Delaware, Franklin, Greene, Madison, Orleans, Schuyler, Sullivan, and Yates County. Certificates of appreciation were mailed to Tyler Mashaw and Rich McLean for their quick thinking and life-saving skills. On February 14, these two members of the 3G Volunteer Fire Department noticed a fellow firefighter having a medical emergency. While they waited for an ambulance to arrive, they desperately performed CPR, checking for a pulse until one was regained and he began breathing on his own. The fellow firefighter was then taken to the hospital and has since made a full recovery. A letter was received from Mr. Glenn Gagne of Krogan, New York, who was in favor of the Homeless Housing and Assistance Program application by explaining that as responsible adults, we have a duty and moral obligation to help those less fortunate, and we should not ignore a humanitarian problem because of some dissent. He closed by urging support on this project and the application. Senior Code Official Board Daily submitted a letter regarding a condemned property located at 10002 State Route 12 in the village of Copenhagen that the owner of record be directed to obtain a building permit and complete alterations, or be directed to demolish the single-family residence and to remediate and clear the site of any debris. Real Property Tax Director Candy Aiken and County Treasurer Eric Berkler submitted applications for refund or credit of real property taxes for property owned by Christmas and Associates and 3 properties owned by Peter and Sandra Jones. Sealer of Weights and Measures Brian Mooney submitted his February summary of field service report, which has been placed on file. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Standing committee reports. Tom, would you start us off with finance and rules, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick report, the county clerk's office has completed 198 passport transactions to date in 2023. This indicates people are once again comfortable with travel. The DMV did 2,072 in-person transactions in the month of March and have met the internet sales threshold of $165,000 a month earlier than in 2022. The new online records access fees for the public have been implemented, including the $5 pay-per-view, which requires no subscription. The Driver's License Suspension Reform Act that took effect no longer allows town justices to revoke a license for non-payment of fines. Instead, they must convert the fines into civil judgments to collect. County Clerk Jake Moser is scheduled to give a presentation to the county magistrates on how to access and search for judgments on the county online record system. I also have a motion. I move to authorize the insurance renewal package policy from NYMIR at an annual cost of $247,786.16 for April 5, 2023 to April 5, 2024. I make that motion.
Moved by Tom, second by Lisa. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
And that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom. We'll move on to Ian Gilbert with the General Services Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After months of anticipation, the solid waste crew has moved into the new scale house at the Loudville Transfer Station. Director Kip Turk moved into his new office on Thursday, March 30th. The transfer station was temporarily closed on Friday, March 31st to move the computer equipment from the old scale house to the new scale house. The new scale house was open for business for the first day on April 1st, the very next day. Principal Account Clerk Denise Yost will be moving into her new office tomorrow. The best part about the department being in one place is that the communication will be improved and public services made better. I want to thank all the employees for their patience and hard work in getting this project completed. I am pleased to report another successful project has been completed for the taxpayers of Lewis County.
Thank you, Ian. Any questions for Ian?
I do have some motions, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep, so the first motion, I move to award the striping bid for Seneca Pavement Markings Incorporated in accordance with the tabulation of all bids prepared by the Highway Superintendent and placed on file with the Clerk of the Board for the period of April 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2024.
Moved by Ian, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries.
Next, I move to award hot asphalt mix based on project location in accordance with the tabulation of all bids prepared by the Highway Superintendent and placed on file with the Clerk of the Board for the period of April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024.
Moved by Ian, second by Jessica. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Finally, I move to award bids for liquid bituminous to Midland Asphalt Materials Incorporated, Vestal Asphalt, Suit Coat, and Gorman Brothers Incorporated for reprofiling, filling cracks, and quick set slurry seal to Suit Coat and Gorman Brothers Incorporated, and for micro surfacing to Suit Coat, all in accordance with the tabulation of all bids prepared by the Highway Superintendent and placed on file with the Clerk of the Board for the period of April 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2024.
Moved by Ian, second by Dick. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed?
That concludes my report.
Motion carries. Thank you. Any questions for Ian? If not, we'll move on to Health and Human Services with Lisa Berkler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start off saying that it is National Public Health Week, and I'd just like to send out a thank you to our team here in Lewis County to help keeping us, for all you do to help keep our community safe and healthy. Also, a update about the opioid funding. Lewis County Community Services has received funding from the New York State Office of Addiction and Support. These funds are intended to combat opiate addiction. In 2003, the dollars will be used to do a few projects. One is to install the nalox boxes, which are Narcan emergency kits, in all 5 school districts. Also spend it to reduce barriers to accessing services by supporting transportation for people going to treatment, and also to do a public service campaign intended to educate our residents and reduce the stigma around opiate and drug addiction. And I have no motions this evening. This concludes, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Thank you, Lisa. We'll move on to the board rep on hospital board. Dick Sargent.
Thank you, Chairman. First up, employee of the month for January is Darcy Zaire. She works as a physical therapist. Employee of the year is Philip Snow. He works in the leisure time activities, and he was our 2022 employee of the year. We had a proclamation in honor of a retiree, Michelle Deagle, transcriptionist. She retired from the health system February 8, 2023. We wish Ms. Deagle a happy and healthy retirement to enjoy her time volunteering, operating, and managing her Run Spirit Walk Orchards, writing her and photographs. We presented 17 cards that have not been used and are not needed for abolishment. We're going to have Fuss Charles Chambers. They're going to present the 2022 audit at our next Finance Committee meeting scheduled in April. Under Finance, we had a loss of $63,000 compared to a budgeted loss of $290,000 for the month of February. Our year-to-date loss was $414,000 versus a budgeted loss of $644,000. The last 3 months, we've done better than the budget. Our other operating revenue, 340B and prescriptions, had fallen off a little bit, so that was one of the reasons that we were down. Salaries were under budget due to fewer staff members than budgeted. Our supplies were over budget due to more implant costs, but the money will come in for that and reimburse us. The Capital Improvement Oversight Committee, Mr. Musnecki says the project remains on schedule. Completion date in early 2024. We continue to have scheduling issues with electrical switches, which is common throughout most of our construction projects and other vehicles too. Right now, we're expecting the needed switches to arrive on May 23rd. The fireproofing hurdle in the new construction has been cleared. We've seen a lot of progress in the inside. It's heated, and we're able to do some finishing in work inside. The general contractor with the brick veneer work was able to put heated enclosures up, and we did quite a bit of work on that through the winter, so we're ahead of schedule. Mr. Kerr had a letter from a patient who was treated at Lewis County General Hospital. We read the letter and shared how grateful the patient was for his experience at Lewis County General Hospital. He especially wanted to thank Dr. Tuttle Malone for coordinating his treatments with an ear, nose, and throat surgeon, Dr. Chafe, the nursing staff in ambulatory, East Wing, and ICU, the hospital pharmacy staff who coordinated with Dr. Tuttle Malone to adjust his antibiotic dosage, and finally a special thanks to the admissions staff who worked through a raft of paperwork and doctor's orders. In conclusion, he added, "I truly was treated like family." That's my report.
Any questions for Dick? Thank you, Dick. Okay, we'll move on to the project manager's report, Jim and Nick Torito.
Again, I'd like to thank the board and county manager for the opportunity to report. The atmosphere of this project continues to be very good. Quite often, when you get into a project that lasts a couple of years, you get to the point where everyone wants to finish and get off the job. Recently, I was on site, one of the workers said to me, "I'm sad, I have to go to another project," which it's kind of nice to hear. You know, it's the atmosphere that we have on the job. And on the other project, one of the local workers actually called the building his building because he works in Lewis County. We're very fortunate to have a positive attitude toward the work, and it results in a higher quality product for the county. And again, the main thing that we're dealing with on our project is the breakers at DSS. And Nicholas will give you the details. He's on site every day and update on the progress.
We'll start up here at the DSS building. We're missing the main breaker. They keep saying any week now. It should be here. I'll believe it when I see it. They've been telling us that for quite a while now. But the progress at the DSS is furniture is going in all the rooms. Doors are going on. Mostly all the flooring is in. All the ceilings are in. Lights are on. Walls are all painted. The building is basically almost waiting for those breakers to show up, and then they can start the mechanical equipment. That building is coming right along. The maintenance garage next to it is also the same spot, waiting for that main breaker for that building. Same thing, painted. Metal panels are up. Siding is all on that building. It's pretty much there. DMV, roof is on. Interior walls are all sheetrock. They've started finishing, so finishing and paint should be happening here soon. Over at the highway garage site, the wash bay siding's up. Garage doors are on. Main doors are on. Interior, just doing a little bit more with plumbing, water. Cold storage is pretty much there as well. Basically, site work is all that's left for that building. And then the highway garage itself is coming right along. Interior work is going to start underground plumbing, some of the underground trenching started this week. And then hopefully the floors can get poured here shortly, and the walls can go up inside of that as well. Site work is started this week as well, and the DOT issue, hopefully we're going to start working on that this week, maybe next week. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. County manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one thing to add to Nick and Jim. We are looking for May 24th as a potential date for a ribbon cutting and open house at DSS. So that project really is coming to a close, hopefully, as long as the breaker shows up, right, Nick? Yeah. So beyond that, I have nothing else to report. Thank you.
Any questions for Ryan? If not, we'll move on to the county treasurer report. Please.
Yeah, I'll have to take Phil's role and said I'm not ready. That was way too short. My report is very limited, actually. Also, you have the my normal monthly written report, and just one comment I think I would make. Our firm was on site last week for our annual audit. Things went quite well, and hopefully they'll finish up all their work within the next couple of weeks. And we're actually expecting to try and have them present to you in June. So we're going to push that up about a month, which will be great to get that done. So going well with that process so far. Take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Eric. Report of the Finance and Rules Committee per Rule 7, Cassandra, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee reports that they have examined the claims presented for payment in the total amount of $2,941,976.39 and recommend that they be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed.
Need a motion? Lisa, second. Jeff, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. So consent resolutions, we are going to pull for individual vote 61, 75, and 68. Are there any others that someone would like to vote on or discuss individually? If not, okay.
I might pull numbers 62, just to briefly comment on that since that was a late
Okay.
resolution.
Anyone have any others? Okay, a motion for the consent resolutions. Lisa, second by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the consent resolutions carry. Individual resolutions, we will start with number 61.
Yes, this is auditing allowing claims in the amount of $2,941,976.39.
Do I have a motion?
I do have to recuse myself from the public defender portion because there's payments to myself and to other attorneys based on vouchers I approved.
Okay, I need a motion to move this. Dick, second by Lisa. Okay, your recusal is noted. Is there any other discussion? This is roll call.
Legislator Hathaway is excused. Legislator Mosier,
Yes.
Legislator Chartrand,
Yes.
Legislator Levicker,
Yes.
Legislator Osborne,
Yes.
Legislator Verkor,
Yes.
Legislator Gilbert,
Yes.
Legislator Moorhan,
Yes.
Legislator Nellenbeck,
Yes.
and Legislator Dahlhoff.
Yes. Next is number 62.
This is a resolution urging the U.S. Department of Agriculture to allow for more flexibility with respect to package and container sizes within certain food categories under the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children.
Moved by Ian, second by Lisa. Discussion.
So this resolution, it was actually brought to us as an idea from some local farmers. And I know Congresswoman Stefanik has been advocating for this, but this is about rulemaking with respect to the WIC program. WIC now allows for, it assists with purchasing yogurt, which is great. It's good for farmers, and yogurt's a very nutrient-dense food. You know, my kids eat it by the tub, but under the rulemaking, it only allowed for the 32-ounce containers. And so what we're asking the USDA to do is to change its guidelines to allow for the smaller child-sized containers to be included with that. So it actually really, from a dietary standpoint, it doesn't change anything, but it would, I think, it would be beneficial both to our farmers who are involved in value-added dairy, and then also for families who rely on WIC for their nutritional supplements.
Very good. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Number 68.
This is a resolution to request New York State Home Rule legislation to continue sales tax increase.
Moved by Tom, second by Lisa. Discussion. I will start off with, there is some confusion on this resolution. It concerns our sales tax, the 4% county portion of the 8% sales tax that we all pay. It is a continuation of the existing percentage. It's not a new tax. We have to have this resolution to request the state to continue to allow us to do so. It probably should be left to the counties to make that decision under home rule, but that's not the way it is. So we have this resolution requesting the state legislature to allow us to continue the process. I hope that clarifies any confusion. Any other comments?
Should be noted too, I think I'm correct, but I think we have the lowest sales tax rate in the state. I mean, we're tied with a lot of counties, but I'm pretty sure 8% is as low as any county in the state has it. I don't know if Eric or Ryan know if that's correct.
I don't know if there's any less than 8%, but I think 8% is pretty standard today.
I would just add that included in the state budget as it stands now, we won't have to request this any longer. They're going to extend the 4% sales tax to counties permanently. So right now we have to do this every 3 years. If the state budget passes, if it passes, then we wouldn't have to do this every 3 years. So.
Anything else? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. The resolution carries. 75.
Yes, resolution number 75 is a resolution in memoriam of Gary F. Buckingham Sr.
Could you read that, please, Cassandra?
Yes. Whereas Gary F. Buckingham Sr. of Lomber Road, New Bremen, New York, has recently departed this life on March 15, 2023. And whereas Gary F. Buckingham Sr. was chosen by the electorate to serve on the Lewis County Board of Legislators effective January 1st, 1970 through February 2nd, 1989 as the District Number 1 representative. And whereas during his tenure, he served as chairman of various board committees, including taxation, transportation, and county officers and employees. He also represented the board as chairman of the Regional Planning Board, chairman of the Regional Forest Practice Board, and president of the New York State Supervisors and County Legislators Association. And whereas on February 7th, 1989, he was appointed as Lewis County's first solid waste coordinator and was responsible for developing the Lewis County Solid Waste and Recycling Program. In 1990, he was appointed Deputy County Highway Superintendent, then Highway Superintendent / Solid Waste Coordinator upon the retirement of Robert Archer. Whereas it is proper for us as friends, acquaintances, and members of the Board of Legislators to record our recognition and appreciation for the sincere, generous, and valuable services rendered by our former colleague, Gary F. Buckingham Sr. Now therefore be it resolved as follows, that as an enduring record and mark of respect to the memory of Gary F. Buckingham Sr., a true friend and honorable public official, this resolution shall be printed in the official record of the proceedings of the Board of Legislators of the County of Lewis, with a copy therefore forwarded to the family of Gary F. Buckingham Sr.
Thank you. Would someone like to move that, please? Seconded by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that carries. That is the end of the resolutions. Do we have any other business? If not, we need a attorney-client privilege session. Someone would like to make a motion for us to go into executive session. Lisa, second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We're out of regular session and in executive session.